Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we're doing a special episode today. I guess we'll call it Wuxia Week. Maybe it's a part of our Bedrock and Balderstone thing. We don't quite know, but we're doing Ip Man today, and so it's kind of straddling the line of what we normally cover. So Ip Man is the 2008 film starring Donnie Yen. It's about Ip Man, who is known to a lot of people because he was the instructor of Bruce Lee. He taught Wing Chun, and it's directed by Wilson Yip, and it also has action choreography by Sammo Hung and Tony Leung Sui Hung. So, Adam, this was your first time seeing it, so I just want to get your reaction to it out of the way before we get into the conversation.
Yeah, it's a very enjoyable movie. I mean, it's definitely one where I could feel the formula in it to an extent, but it's just done really well. Donnie Yen is fantastic in it too. I think he does a great job with the lead performance in this. Obviously the choreography, but it just brings the character across. It's not something I'd recommend if you want to know anything real about the historical figure's life, but it's just a really entertaining movie.
Yeah, it takes a lot of liberties. It basically takes like Ip Man's life, but it kind of lays on top of it all of the tropes of like a kung fu craze type movie. Like you have the Japanese, you have the just sort of the rivalry between the local schools and all that stuff, and so it's and it's set during Japanese occupation. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. It begins before the occupation,
yeah,
and then that becomes a thing, which I thought really worked well.
It did. It's a very kind of lighthearted movie early on, and then when you have the change, it does kind of a time jump into the occupation. It's very effective.
It reminded me a lot of Cinderella Man, where I don't know if you've seen that, but
I have.
Okay,
yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. Like it sort of starts. You have like the glitz and glamour of his early career before the Depression, and then when the Depression sets in, you see just how it creates this contrast of like, oh my God, he really is down on his luck. So
that's a good comparison actually.
So obviously it takes liberties with history, but I think that's fine. And also it's got some really obvious political messaging in it. There's this sort of there's a little bit of a nationalist streak perhaps through the Ip Man movies.
It's a very, very, very patriotic movie. There's no question.
But it's a really good film, and it really gets sort of like it just has all this emotional weight to it, and all this great fight choreography, and like you had mentioned, Donnie Yen, who isn't often praised for his acting, he's often more. People tend to comment more on his martial arts performance.
Yeah,
he really kind of transforms in this movie. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like apparently he lost a lot of weight just to get to resemble him and all that stuff, but also the way he carries himself, and he just has a very, very elegant and sort of poised manner about him that really works well for this movie. Like the whole way his character approaches martial arts really is striking. Just in terms of the way he conducts himself and the way that when people try to get under his skin, the way he resolves things. There's a scene in the movie that I really like because I think it's a great lesson for a lot of people, where people come to his house and try to bully him into fighting a lot, and his wife is kind of always a little bit irritated by this.
A little bit.
And at one point, it's clear that the wife doesn't want him to fight, and the guy that's trying to get him to fight, says that he's afraid of his wife, and his response is he's not afraid of his wife, but a lot of men know to respect their wives. I thought that was a really good comeback to that particular insult.
No, I just happen to not be a jerk. That's all.
But yeah, so I don't know. Just speaking in terms of the fight scenes, was there any fight in particular that you really liked, or was there any that stood out to you?
Boy, any in particular? I can't say one in particular. I mean, all the fights in this movie are pretty enjoyable. I mean, obviously, the fight where he takes on 10 guys was pretty cathartic, I think, just at that point in the movie. But
that one had the most power in terms of that stuff, I thought. Because it was a scene where you have this character he's stately and reserved, and he's not like the other people in the movie that are always losing their temper and stuff. Do you know what I mean? He's like really got control of his emotions, and he's just calm. And to see him lose it that way, And again, it's not like he's flying out. He's not like flailing limbs, losing it, but he is. You can see the emotion.
There's a cold fury going on there.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and the whole thing that leads up to that, I thought, is really compelling. And again, it's stuff that it's a little heavy-handed, but I think it was effective. Where
it is. I mean, it's like I said, this movie is very formulaic in the sense you can kind of see the wheels turning, but they're turning. They're such well-oiled wheels that it works. It's just a very well done movie.
And I like the character dynamics. I like that you have So you have his friend, right? That and again and I'm sure you recognize this guy because we've seen him in a lot of movies at this point. The man who played I think it was. I'm trying to remember the name of the character.
What movie are we talking about? And are we talking about in this movie or in the other movie that you're talking about?
No, in this movie. The guy, the character that Yu Jing played.
I can't think of the character's name, I'm afraid.
Lin.
Yeah.
So, I like the relationship they established with him, and then, the scene where he gets beaten to death by the general. Number one, it's interesting because if you notice, the general doesn't actually want to kill him in that scene. The general is trying to tell him to back down a little bit, and the guy kind of keeps pushing him because he's so enraged. Do you know what I mean? But the general, up until the moment when he spits in the general's face, the general seems to be holding back, and then at that point, the general. It was interesting in this movie that the general is somewhat moderate in his actions. He's not. It's his lieutenant is the big villain of the movie, and the general, it's like, has a certain sense of fair play to him. Yeah, no, definitely. The general's basically a martial artist, and he's trying to hold these martial arts tournaments. And it's really, at one point, so there's the scene where the general kills that guy, but like I said, it wasn't like he was setting out to do it deliberately before the fight started. It happened, over the course of the fight. The scene with with his lieutenant who shoots Master Lu, I think it was the guy that he's the character that first challenges Ip Man at the beginning of the movie. That scene I thought worked really well because number one, that lieutenant guy he's just such a perfect villain in the movie. Like he's really more evil than the general. He's the one you don't want to see the general killed necessarily. That guy you want to see die. And spoilers, you do get to see him die. But I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was just agreeing. I mean, the general, like, obviously, I'm not clear. I don't think he does actually die in this. Does he? Or
I don't think he's dead.
He gets kind of knocked out, and that's the last we see of him.
But what I mean is the audience doesn't desire to see him dead.
I agree. I wasn't disagreeing with you, just making the point that, I don't think he even does die, so.
And when the, and so when that lieutenant shoots Master Lu, that's sort of that's when the cold fury that we're talking about. And so you have this real buildup of first his friend Lin and then Master Lu, and there's that bloody rice sack on the ground. And so then Ip Man goes in and he takes on all these guys, and they give him like 10 sacks of rice or whatever it is, and he doesn't even take them. He just takes the one bloody sack of rice, and and brings it to the widow. Do you know what I mean? It's just such a perfect scene. But like I just love all the characters that you sort of they spent enough time building up all these characters that when you get to that scene, it's not meaningless when these people die. Do you know what I mean? It's got a lot of weight to it.
The time jump, having the time before the war, it's like you get to see all these characters in very different situations before and after the war, and who ends up where, and it's done in a very broad manner, but it really works very well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Now, what did you think of the police inspector character that Gordon Lamb played?
Yeah, I mean he's
important. He's important through the whole movie. So
yeah, he didn't make as much of an impression for me in the early part of the movie. Like he's there, but I didn't have any strong opinion of him early in the movie. But yeah, in the second half, he becomes kind of crucial. He's that guy caught in the middle there. So yeah. I don't know. I thought it was a well drawn character. I don't know. What was your opinion?
Well, I like him. I like that he sort of starts. I mean, he starts out as the police inspector. He's kind of, I don't know. He's basically a good guy, but he seems a little happy to throw his weight around. But then when the Japanese invade, he becomes an interpreter, and the Japanese are kind of using him to recruit people for the general to use in those tournaments. But he's slowly sort of getting corrupted by this process, and Ip Man rebukes him and basically just slaps him in the face. And when I first saw that scene, the first time I saw the film, not this time, but like I thought that he was I thought the way the movie was going to play out was that he was going to develop like some kind of resentment and enmity towards it, man. Do you know what I mean? Because they have that big blowout. And I thought there was going to be like, oh, now he's really going to work for the Japanese like even more. Or so, like I didn't know. Like
that's what makes his character interesting is he doesn't have a clear trajectory. He's the character that can go either way. Out of all the characters in the movie, you're not really sure which way he's going to land.
Yeah, no, and so that he doesn't go that way, and that he actually ends up, reforming and then becoming so instrumental that he's actually the guy that kills the lieutenant at the tournament. That's I think he just has a really complete arc in the movie, like and in that scene when he shoots the lieutenant, it's just so gratifying. Do you know what I mean? That it's him. They could have had it be any other character, and it really worked having it be him. So I really like that character. What were there any characters that stood out to you? Obviously, aside from Ip Man, that were interesting or different.
Well, we've talked about a lot of them already. I mean, as far as the wife is a very interesting character. I think. Her annoyance early in the movie. I mean, I think this was fairly well justified to an extent. It's like it's like it would be easy for it to be unsympathetic, but I think they did a good job of kind of balancing the two things there.
Yeah, no, and she's played by Lin Hung, and she's very, I think she's very good in the role. Like this is one of these actors who can really just do it with her eyes alone. She can kind of do a lot, it seems. And what she's sort of like the Adrian character in the film, like she's the wife, and so she's trying to protect their home life, and like early on, there's an evening where Ip Man is teaching somebody. He's actually teaching Lin, the guy who gets beaten to death by the general, and the son goes over to give Ip Man a picture that he drew, and that sort of sets off a chain reaction where the wife eventually insists people go home. And there's a lot of little moments like this. But by the end of the movie, she sort of comes around and like realizes that like when he's having the duel with the general, that she sort of was never really allowing him to fully embrace this aspect of his personality, and now he's having this final duel. And she doesn't actually say this, but my thought when she says that is one of the things she must be thinking is, oh no, I didn't let him prepare enough for this fight, and now he might die. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of what I was. And obviously there are other reasons why he might die too. It's not a normal, mano a mano fight, but I thought her character was very interesting, and also kind of like a key trope in a movie, but like done in a really good way. It's sort of the you in a lot of these films you have sort of the martial character, and then you have the spouse that is going to obviously be concerned about the consequences of this person being involved in anything martial, so
like I said, I thought it was well done in that I understood where she was coming from early in the movie, whereas in a lot of movies that character could have been played in a way where she's just the annoying character that's getting in the way of our hero doing cool things, and there was just enough balance to it for it to feel understandable, through the whole thing.
Well, and the picture that the kid was drawing ended up being, I think, a picture of him and the father. So when he actually went over and looked at it, the wife had a pretty good point. And when people would come and challenge him, things would break inside of the house. It wasn't.
That one fight against the guy who came into town to try and start its own school, I was like, can't you just go outside? I mean, come on.
That guy was fun. I really like that character.
He was a great character. He really was. I was glad he shows up later in the movie, too.
Some of his stuff is almost tangential, but it really adds to the movie. Like he arrives in town, he's just like wants to take on everybody, and he's beating the crap out of all of the other instructors. And basically Ip Man's the one that they need to help restore some amount of honor to the martial arts of the city. And I thought that whole plot line worked great. And I love when he comes back and they're able to tie him into the Lin storyline with Lin's brother. Do you know what I mean? That was
very well done. Yeah.
And I like how in the fights, like in the fight with him, like between what was his character's name? Kam Shan Chu, I think, or Jim Shan Zhao, depending on which Mandarin or Cantonese, but it was a real interesting contrast between their styles, because the whole time he's mocking him, because Wing Chun is known as like a style invented by a woman, so he's basically trying to insult his masculinity. That's why he says he's afraid of his wife. That's why he's saying all these things, and he ends up resorting to a sword at the end because he's so beaten by him, and Ip Man beats him with a feather duster. Do you know what I mean? And so he sort of like turns this, like all of this guy's humiliating tactics on his head, and humiliates him even more by defeating him with a feather duster. It's just it's a really great scene, and I think the fights are really well constructed in this movie for that.
I like the follow up to that when that same character shows up at the factory later, and the factory owner's son like, oh, I'm gonna use my Wing Chun. It's like, oh, Wing Chun. Yeah. He's just like enraged by being presented with the fighting style at all.
And that's the other thing, they get the mill in there. Like, it's got all of the kung fu movie tropes. You got the mill, you got all these things. You got the schools, you got the Japanese. I really liked the scene with the general and Ip Man. I don't know if it was the night before the fight, but like it seemed like it was the night before the fight when he's in jail and the general kneels in front of him and gives him the food. What did you think of that scene?
Boy, I don't have I don't know. It didn't make a huge impression on me. What did you think of it there?
I don't know. I just thought, well, number one, I thought Ip Man comes out sort of ahead in the conversation. But it just emphasized that, like, I mean, again, he's still an evil character in the movie. He's still like he's still sort of a Japanese occupying character in the film, and those are generally evil in these movies. But the level of sort of respect that he was trying to show to Ip Man, just set him apart from that lieutenant character. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of like, he was still sort of arrogant, and that he was like, look, like, I think you're talented, and that's why I want to recruit you. But I still don't think your Chinese martial arts are better than Japanese martial arts.
I know.
So he's a character that just was. I feel like when he and Ip Man have the duel, Ip Man is definitely venting a lot of his rage at this guy, but I think most of. I think he stays his hand. He clearly could have killed the general, and he chooses not to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, unless the general did die, but I think both of us are in agreement that he didn't die in that scene.
I didn't get the impression that he died.
So I think that's because there's some amount of respect that he has for the man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Who's to say if he survives the mob sweeping up at the end too? But so there's a lot of things that are uncertain there.
But yeah, no. And another scene I really like is the scene when the lieutenant goes to his house and you sort of slowly, and it's sort of like done in stages, where first it's the police inspector or the interpreter who shows up and is like, because they're looking for Ip Man, and Ip Man tells him to go away, and he's like, I can't. And then you see the son playing, some kind of gun game. He's going pew pew pew, and then there's somebody else going pew pew pew, and it's the lieutenant, and the lieutenant shows up, and then the lieutenant sees his wife, and he's like, oh, she's very pretty, and then Ip Man knows like he has no choice, he has to do something, and so he takes out all of the general's men there, and then he has to go into hiding. And I thought that fight scene was really kind of cool because it had a lot of there were a lot of stakes involved, and I wasn't quite expecting him to spring into action the way he did.
I wasn't. I was surprised that did turn into a fight there. But it was effective, and I mean, it gives you some satisfaction from from seeing the lieutenant get beat up too. It's like we've had the characters kind of on their heels for the whole time. So it's, even though they have to go on the run because of it, it's fairly satisfying.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. Now, what about anything else in the movie before we get into like recommendations and reviews and stuff like that?
Well, I think we talked like the very beginning about the factual accuracy of the movie, and I think the factual accuracy in the movie doesn't even matter because as you talked about, the movie is so stylized and so because there's the idea of anyone watching this movie and thinking, wow, this is what really happened. It's like it's not even on the table of reality. So it's like I don't feel like sometimes you watch a movie about someone's life and I feel like it's kind of deceptive what they did there. And it's like this movie is very far from reality, but I didn't feel deceived because it is just such a story.
Yeah, no, no, I agree with that, and I also have come to sort of feel that with history and movies, it's almost better when films are really far outside of history, because when it's really close, then that's when people develop the
exactly.
Like I know so many people, for example, like a movie like Amadeus, which tries to stay more true, say, to the historical details, but takes liberties because it's a movie and because it was a play, and that took liberties. But I can't tell you the number of times I heard from music instructors who told me the history of Mozart, and it was obvious they were telling me the history because of the movie. And then when I would go and read a biography about Mozart, it wouldn't match up to what the person had said. So like I think when there's that veneer of historical accuracy, it's more of an issue. And like you said here, it's so stylized. I mean, I could see like a teenager seeing this and maybe thinking this stuff happened. But I think if you're an adult and you know how these things work, you're not going to assume that all the details in here, especially when it gets to the point of the tournament scene at the very end. That's when it kind of is obvious beyond a shadow of a doubt. But also just sort of the stuff that's going on. It's all stuff that happens in kung fu movies. Do you know what I mean?
That's my point. It's just very, very much a movie, and But yeah, because I mean, I agree with you. The narrower the gap is between reality, the more of a problem it is. But it's funny just so because obviously after watching this, I was encouraged to go look up information about this guy, and I thought one of the places where they had to juice it up by changing things is the whole, oh well, I don't like teaching people things, and it's like he's very reluctant to take on students. Like, he taught plenty of people by then, but you get to add that dramatic arc. He learns that he needs to teach people and stuff. I thought that was movie.
Well, and some of the other, and obviously the sexier elements, like the whole thing that happens with the general and all this stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking a small thing, but that kind of because obviously that stuff is all very, very much. You can tell it's fiction right away.
Yeah, yeah. No, and also, I mean, some of the stuff really ties to real things too. Like, he really was wealthy, right? Like
that actually, that is stuff that you could think is made up, but is actually real. The mansion being taken and everything.
And there's a whole line in there he mentions about how families should never be separated. But then if you go and learn about him, like, he and his wife were separated because of the events of the Chinese Civil War, right? So and it's really tragic because they make it to Hong Kong, but then I think she goes back to get her identity papers and she can't return, Yeah. And that's I mean, that's got to be, and like, if you know anything about what happens, I mean, like, it's just horrendous to think that, like, a husband and wife are separated that way, and the husband, and Ip Man is in Hong Kong, while she's, in mainland China. So, but yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a great movie. Like, it just is. I was surprised it came out in 2008 because I felt like I saw this like around 2010 or something. So I don't know. I must have just seen it on Netflix when it first became available or something. But it was such a good movie when I saw it, and I was worried that when we watched it for the podcast that it was like not going to hold up, because sometimes when I see movies from like 10 years ago and I watch them now, there's stuff that you don't realize how much changes in that period of time. The only thing I noticed that I was like, oh, this is something that maybe they might not have wanted to do, is the color filter on the film. Do you know what I mean? That was the only thing that if I was going to complain about anything, it would have been the color filter, because we used a lot of color filters back then. Do you know what I mean?
It didn't bother me in this. I wasn't really paying attention. Color filters often do annoy me, though. But yeah, whatever reason they didn't really.
It wasn't as bad as, say, like the Transformer movies. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like that, but it was just like you would notice it. Everything kind of had like a dusk sort of tone to it. But it worked well. Like they did, like in that scene in the coal mines, everything looked almost black and white except for the yam or whatever it was they were eating. So, they kind of got, it was almost like a Schindler's List type effect,
Yes, so they let the color shine through on that object,
But yeah, so I don't know. And the other thing I like about this movie, too, is it's only an hour and 45 minutes, but it feels so epic. Like, you get, not epic, epic's the wrong word. It feels like you really get this span of stuff. Like, you get this, like, all the stuff that happens at Foshan earlier in the movie is just... It's just such a marvelous building of like an old city. Do you know what I mean? You just get the sense of this dynamic sort of environment that the guy's living in, and then that whole sequence where he's down on his luck and working in the coal mine and homeless and all that, and it's occupied. It just has this sense of obviously the movie takes liberties with history, but it has a sense of history to it in that this is stuff that would have been going on at the time. Do you know what I mean?
The movie has a sweep of history to it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the language I'm looking for. There's a sweep of history to it. And so by the time you get to the tournament, it just feels like so much stuff has occurred. And again, the fight sequences, they're just really great. And also, we've watched a lot of movies that have Wing Chun in them, and sometimes one of the chief complaints is there's not enough Wing Chun in this Wing Chun movie. And I don't practice Wing Chun, so I don't know. I've never practiced Wing Chun, but to me, this looked like it was making an effort to do it authentically with the style of fighting that he was doing, and it really seemed to center around the wooden dummy exercise. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of going back to that wooden dummy training, and you would see, because I think the idea is he's sort of training alone because he doesn't have students, and he's, a lot of the stuff that he's doing is on that wooden dummy, which for real martial arts I think makes very little sense, but for a movie like this it made a lot of sense. It was a really cool sort of visual image to harken back to, especially in that last fight sequence. But yeah, I thought it was just a really solid film, and I think this is, again, it's one of these things where it's become sort of a franchise at this point. But yeah, so I don't know, what's your ranking of this film on a scale of 1 to 5? Let's go with our normal 1 to 5 ranking.
It's getting hard on me because I only intermittently get to review the wuxia films recently, and I keep watching really good ones and good martial arts films in general, and it's like, so I feel like I'm being super generous, but I feel like I should give this a 5. So even though I've only been handing out 5s lately, so I need to review some lesser quality movies on this podcast just to maintain just to get some credibility here, because I'm starting to look bad.
And there's not like usually a correct answer to that question, but you got it right. Like, this is the right answer.
It is.
It's a 5.
It is a 5.
It's absolutely a 5. There's just no denying it. This movie is a 5 on every level. Just in terms of the way it's shot, in terms of the way everything works emotionally, in terms of the fight choreography, in terms of like the casting and everything. Like, I don't have
pacing, there's no dead spots in the movie. It's just entertaining from beginning to end. Everything.
Yeah, it's a really, really good film. And so again, the reason why we're reviewing this is because Michelle Yeoh is in a spin-off film, and it's coming out soon, and I want us to be ready to do that when the time comes. So I want to make sure we have some Ip Man stuff on the channel. And so the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Adam, and obviously I think we both recommend the movie to people. Would you agree?
No, without question. Yeah. So I'd recommend this to pretty much anybody.
If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix now. I recommend buying this movie because you don't want to be in a situation where it goes off Netflix and you can't watch it if you want to see it. It's not the kind of movie that you need to watch all the time. Like, I watch it every once in a while, but it's the kind of film where you want to you probably want to own it. Do you know what I mean? Just because it's sort of like it's like having The Godfather on the shelf or something. It's that kind of film where you may want to review it from time to time. But yeah. So the good news, Adam, is there are 2 more Ip Man movies, and so we're going to be able to watch 2 more of them. And there's actually a 4th, I think, that they're making at some point, but I don't know how true that is. I've just heard.
Yeah, I caught the rumor of that. I saw something on how Donnie Yen said he was not making another one, but now he's working on another one. So we'll and there's a lot of interesting stuff in the other Ip Man movies, which we'll get to when we cover them. But there's I think you'll have some interesting reactions. But what I wanted to know is, because I don't know how much you know about this going in, was the Bruce Lee thing a surprise to you at the end, or was that something that you did know about before the movie, or? I did know. I mean, I don't know any details about it, but I did know of the connection. Okay, so yeah, okay. It wasn't a stunning revelation. Damn it!
I was hoping you were going to be like, oh, this is why Brendan wanted me to see it. So
I was spoiled on that one detail,
But yeah, so again, and I think the other thing I got to say too is I kind of mentioned it, but when that opening part of the film, when you get the sense that this is a city with this thriving martial arts community, the way they just built that up, like, they just really looked like a real living place. I thought that
it was a great set. It was fantastic. But yeah, the reveal with Bruce Lee at the end, I could see that being really good if you didn't know, because as we talked about, the movie is so stylized and easy to just see as a movie. That would be the moment you're like, wait, this was a real guy?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
It definitely. I think that's the effect they were going for, Do you know
I
what I mean?
think so.
Yeah.
I think so because I mean it's long enough now that it's not. I mean I don't even remember where I kind of learned that detail, but I can see a lot of most people watching this movie probably wouldn't know.
Well, it's a pretty popular franchise. A lot of people like it, man, and it's I think it's very well deserved. But but yeah, so we'll head out and we'll be back on. Well, so we got a few things lined up this week. Before I forget, people should check out our Patreon and contribute if they want. It'll help us to buy movies and stuff like that. But on Thursday, I believe we're doing a Chinese ghost story. On Thursday, I'm pretty sure, and that's going to be a Wuxia workshop thing. So we're going to be talking about it more in a gaming context, probably. And then on Friday, we're doing Detective D, which I've already heard from Dion, and I know we're going to have a very interesting conversation. So I'm very curious to see how people feel about this movie. It's Adam, you haven't seen it yet, have you?
I have not seen it.
All right,
yet.
I won't spoil it for you. I'm just going to say it kind of has a Sherlock Holmes element to it. Do you know what I mean? It's like wuxia and detective sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there's other reasons why I want to talk about Detective D. And yeah, so we'll be back on, and until then, we will talk to you later.